You don't forget the sound of 200 Navy SEALs falling silent at the same exact second. There's something unnatural about it, like a storm shutting itself off in mid-strike. That silence lived forever inside the walls of Naval Special Warfare Training Command Coronado, and it began on a winter morning when the sky was heavy with fog and the Pacific winds carried the metallic smell of salt and tension. This was graduation week, when the strongest, sharpest, and most elite warriors in the country pushed through their final phase before receiving their tridents. The mood was usually electric, but not that year, not that morning, because she had arrived. Lieutenant Ava Rios, 5'7", quiet voice, the kind of posture that radiated discipline so sharply she never had to raise her tone. A Marine Corps martial combat instructor on temporary assignment. A woman with a reputation whispered through teams like a classified rumor. Some said she once disarmed 3 hostiles in the confines of a collapsing structure. Some said she could shoot better than half the SEALs she trained. Some said she didn't bleed. But most didn't know anything about her because Ava didn't talk. She taught, she corrected, and she watched. And on that particular morning, she was watching the man who would try to strike her. The man who'd learned too late who she really was. The kill house was unusually crowded that day. 300 SEALs, active, graduated, and candidates, had assembled to observe the final mandatory close-quarters combat evaluation. It wasn't normal to have such an audience, but then again, it wasn't normal to have a Marine instructor evaluating an entire class of Navy special operators. Some didn't like that. Command Master Chief Derek Hale especially. He was big, a wall of a man with forearms like hydraulic pistons and a chest built out of decades of iron and deployments. Older, respected, but lately unpredictable. The kind of man who believed hierarchy was carved in stone, and he did not appreciate a Marine telling his SEALs what to fix, not in his house. As the class began running drills, Hale's voice barked across the hall like cannon fire. Pick up the pace, reset that entry, stack tighter, this isn't kindergarten. He wasn't yelling at the students, he was yelling over Ava. She pretended not to notice. 2 months earlier, an inter-branch evaluation committee had ordered a quiet overhaul of hand-to-hand readiness. Several incidents overseas had shown deficiencies, nothing catastrophic, but enough that someone somewhere high up decided the SEALs needed a refresher from someone with zero bias, zero fear, and zero political ties. Ava was that someone. She didn't want the assignment, but refusing wasn't an option, not when she'd built her life around doing what her Marines needed, not what she preferred. And besides, she owed something to the uniform, something she never talked about, so she came, and people stared. Because she wasn't built like the male instructors, she wasn't bombastic or loud, her authority was quiet, calm, and surgical, threateningly so, especially to men like Hale. The confrontation began subtly, friction disguised as disagreements. During a hallway clearance drill, she corrected his team's spacing. "You're bunching," she said calmly. "If the rear man goes down, you lose the line." Hale snorted. "We've been clearing rooms since before you graduated high school, Lieutenant." She didn't rise to the bait. "With respect, Master Chief," she said. "Experience doesn't excuse a tactical error." Every student heard it. Every student froze. Hale's jaw tightened. "Try that tone again." Ava simply pointed at the wall camera replay, showing the spacing fault. He said nothing, but he didn't forget. Men like him rarely did. Word spread. Whispers grew. Some SEALs admired her discipline. Some resented her corrections. Some were confused by the chain of command politics that had brought her there. But everyone felt the tension thickening, especially during the 3rd week, when weather delays forced all indoor exercises into a single packed schedule. That day was disastrous. By noon, Hale had overridden her instructions twice. By 1500, he'd contradicted her corrections. By 1700, he'd snapped at her in front of a class. When they finally stepped out to the loading bay, she quietly approached him. "Master Chief, if you have concerns about the training, we can address them professionally." He stepped closer, voice low and sharp. "The only concern I have is you stepping where you don't belong." A few nearby SEALs overheard. Their heads turned, but Ava didn't react. "You may address that with command," she said simply, then walked away. Hale's eyes followed her with something darker than anger, something dangerous. It happened during the final demonstration, an event scheduled in front of all teams, instructors, visiting officers, and support personnel. 300 elite warriors packed into the kill house observation deck. Ava was to demonstrate advanced counter-aggression techniques using volunteer opponents. Hale insisted on being one of them. Command approved it, thinking nothing of it. Hale approached the mat, muscles coiled, expression unreadable. Ava bowed slightly, a gesture of professional courtesy. He didn't bow back. The room was loud, boots scraping, people whispering, the heavy hum of air vents. But when the demonstration began, everything suddenly grew sharp and tense. Ava called out instructions. Hale ignored them. She repositioned lightly. He refused to follow. The first few exchanges were stiff and uncooperative, but still within control, until Hale stepped closer, too close, and hissed under his breath, "You don't belong here." She didn't respond, so he raised his voice. Loud, public, humiliating. "Let's see what you've really got, Lieutenant." Laughter from a few corners, shifting boots, growing uncertainty. She held her ground. "Master Chief, follow the drill." But he didn't. He swung. Not a training strike, a real one. Fast, heavy, meant to land. Gasps erupted in the stands. Chairs scraped, people stood up, and then a single crack so sharp the room stopped breathing. The moment Hale's fist came forward, Ava's body reacted on instinct. Years of training condensed into a heartbeat. She rotated, redirected the force, locked his elbow, and with a precise downward torque, snap. His arm bent the wrong direction. The Master Chief dropped to his knees with a roar that echoed through the entire facility. 300 SEALs stared in stunned silence. Ava didn't posture. She didn't celebrate. She didn't flinch. She simply stepped back, hands raised in a neutral stance. "Instructor reaction procedure," she said evenly. "Instructor reaction. Threat neutralized." You could hear a pin drop. Medics sprinted in. Command stormed forward. And Hale, clutching his broken arm, glared up at her with something between shock and betrayal. You broke my arm." She didn't blink. "You attacked me, Master Chief." And everyone knew she was right. Investigations in the military moved slowly but thoroughly. Statements were taken. Video was reviewed. Witnesses corroborated everything. A panel concluded Ava acted in self-defense. Hale initiated an unauthorized, aggressive strike. Her response was appropriate and controlled. But while the paperwork was clean, the emotional fallout wasn't. Some SEALs avoided her, unsure of what to say. Some respected her more than ever. Some were furious at Hale for disgracing their uniform, yet Ava carried herself the same as always. Quiet, composed, professional. Until Command called her into an empty conference room. Waiting inside was Captain Marlowe, the officer overseeing the Inner Branch program. He tapped a folder gently. "You could have held back, Lieutenant." She met his eyes. "I could have pulled a punch. But I won't pull integrity." A long silence. Then Marlowe nodded. "That's why we chose you." The report revealed something unexpected. Hale had been battling personal issues. A divorce. A pending medical review for chronic injuries. A reprimand for an unrelated disciplinary violation. None of it excused his behavior, but it explained the storm brewing inside him. Ava asked the reviewing panel not to discharge him. "He made a mistake," she said. "But he's still a SEAL. Don't take that from him." It surprised them. It humbled him. And months later, when he returned to duty with limited restrictions, he requested a private meeting. Ava agreed. The room was small, quiet, lonely, with its fluorescent light. Hale stood before her, arms still healing, eyes heavy. "I owe you an apology," he said. "I disrespected you. I disrespected the program, and I deserved what happened." Ava didn't soften. "What you did could have ended your career. Or mine." "I know." He swallowed. "And you still fought for me to stay." "Why?" She held his gaze. "Because strength without humility is just violence, and you're better than the worst moment of your life." For the first time, Hale's voice cracked. "Thank you." On graduation day, the sun burned bright over the parade deck. Families cheered, operators stood proud in their dress uniforms, and the commanding officers delivered speeches about honor, sacrifice, and the weight of the trident. Ava stood quietly off to the side, an outsider again, watching, observing. But then an entire graduating platoon broke formation. They marched toward her, and every one of them saluted. A single candidate stepped forward, Petty Officer Shane Carter, one of the most promising SEALs in the class. "Ma'am," he said. "Thank you for keeping our standards strong, for teaching us discipline, and for reminding all of us what real courage looks like." Ava nodded, emotion flickering in her eyes. When they returned to formation, the Master Chief, arm in a sling, walked up beside her. "Lieutenant," he said quietly, "you do belong here." And for the first time since she arrived, Ava let herself smile, small, but real. After the program ended, Ava returned to her Marines. Her life continued, deployments, training rotations, quiet nights inside tented bases across the world. But something changed, not in how she carried herself, not in how she trained others, but in how others saw her. She was no longer the quiet outsider. She was the instructor who stood her ground, the Marine who taught SEALs discipline, the woman who defended herself without ego or arrogance, the warrior who believed integrity wasn't loud, it was steady, and sometimes the strongest person in the room was the one who never needed to shout. True strength isn't proved by overpowering others. It's proved by standing firm when courage, character, and integrity are tested. A calm mind can break the cycle of violence, and sometimes the loudest lesson is taught in silence.